Great to be with you. Let's talk about the future, shall we?
Rocket Man, burning out his fuse out there alone.
Yes, is part of our future outer space, literally outer space. Well, the push for South Australia to lead the renewal of the Aussie space race is certainly gaining momentum, and rightly so, with our pretty good history. But one of the many events helping our reputation as a leader in the area of new technology is called Hybrid World Adelaide, which kicks off this Friday. And joining me is the lady in charge, Amanda Duthie. Hello there.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good to see you. We're also joined by Flinders University Professor Alice Gorman, also known as Dr. Space Junk. I love your nickname, Alice.
It appeared at random and it's just kind of stuck.
It's stuck. That's something you'll never shake off, I reckon. Hey, listen, let's begin with you, Amanda. Hybrid World Adelaide. What is it?
It's multifaceted. We have a 2-day development lab that kicks off this Friday with 15 projects from all over Australia going through an intensive 2-day workshop with all of the mentors and special guests from the conference, and they'll be looking at all of those projects. It's got a fantastic prize at the end. There's $85,000 development money up for grabs thanks to Tech and SA, and projects will be vying for that at the conference on Monday. So the conference kicks off Monday 23rd, Tuesday 24th. Tickets are still available. And it's an incredible array of industry-facing thinkers and makers and leaders in the innovation and technology industries, whether it is from space, like Alice, who's here today, through to Crystal Johnson, who's coming over from NASA, but it's everything that includes AI, robotics, ag tech, you know, the built environment, the natural environment, and robots in between.
I think what a lot of people don't realise is we are real leaders in this area, aren't we?
Absolutely.
But a lot of the stuff is sort of happening behind the scenes and we don't hear about it very much.
So this is very much a celebration and a showcase of the work that's happening in South Australia. And it will also be running from Friday night to Sunday night, a big public program where you can bring the grandparents, or the grandparents can bring the kids to come along and learn how to race drones. We're working with the Crows to present the high school esports championships. We've got people teaching about twitching and podcasting.
Twitching? Hang on. Wrong age group. Twitching. What's twitching?
Well, other generations call it dancing, Alan.
Oh.
I thought we were talking about bird watching.
Yeah, so did I.
It's a fantastic new social platform where it's another form of communication, and Barjo will be leading that masterclass, and we can have combat robots. There'll be so many things to entertain, everyone who comes down to the public program at the convention centre. But then at night, because let's face it, it's winter, so that happens at 5:15. There's an enormous water wall. So it's this enormous screen of water that is out on the River Torrens, 20 metres by 9 metres tall.
Wow. Okay.
And so we'll be projecting films and screen content onto the water wall, but also we'll be playing retro games. So if your memory harks back to Space Invaders,
yes,
but you want to play it large, you can do that on the water wall on the River Torrens.
Oh, you can actually play it on the screen that's on the water.
Yeah. So that runs from Friday night through to Monday night, and I'm so excited. We're going to go and give it a test run on Thursday, but I've said I really bags playing Space Invaders.
Now, this is open to everyone, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We can go along and free of charge?
Yep, the public program is all free except for some of those master classes but the prices are incredibly reasonable, so you can bring all the kids. And the conference is obviously ticketed, and all those tickets are available online now.
We hear a lot about more emphasis being placed on STEM, in our schools and so forth, which is science, technology, electronics, engineering and Medicine, thank you very much. I think it should be STEAM, personally, but I'm an arty.
Too.
Yeah, good.
Or Teams is the other way of doing it,
You know, it's an intergenerational thing, isn't it? The younger kids will obviously be converted, but we're in this transition phase of the kids that are, you know, in high school now. Probably too late for them to be influenced by the program, of the STEM program at least. Is it difficult to get them on board and get them interested?
No, I think they're more digitally attuned than people who haven't grown up with, you know, mobile phones and computers or laptops on the end of the couch while you're watching, you know, the old system, which is television. So I think the great thing about Hybrid World is that those STEAM generation kids can still come in and learn how to code or just get a little bit more hands-on flying hours with drones. But if they come down with their parents or their older brothers and sisters or even their grandparents, it sort of breaks down the mystery for all of those different generations, because essentially that STEM generation, the jobs that they will have in 20 years, we don't even know exactly what they are.
They haven't been invented yet, have they?
Yeah, that's right. So I think we're all on a learning journey. It's just that some are much more able than others, and it's usually the youngsters.
And I think what us oldies, sorry to include you in that category.
Wise, the wise ones, you mean,
yeah, the
Alan?
wiser ones.
Yeah.
We've also got to realise, haven't we, that I think when we left school, it was probably the average was we'd have 5 jobs in our career. I think it's up to 18 or something now for this generation, isn't it?
Yep.
And as you say, half the jobs haven't even been invented yet.
Yeah, no, the churn is so much more, but also the churn of all information, the turnover of how we communicate with each other, where we're getting our news, how we make those connections. It's much more accelerated. But it's also about trying to hold on to the values. So even, you know, in the space race, what are the ethics, what are the values that we want to have here on Earth, and then what are those values that we want to have in space, just to create a little bit of a segue. Yeah,
and that's where we can bring in you, Alice. Also known as Dr. Space Junk, as we've said. Well, what's your fascination? How did you get involved in space?
Well, the short story is, as a child, I loved going outside and looking up at the Milky Way and the stars and the constellations.
So it began right back then. You were always fascinated,
But I was also really interested in human behaviour, how humans worked, why stuff happened. So I ended up being an archaeologist. That's basically what archaeologists do. And maybe, I don't know, it might have been about 13 years ago, I just had a revelation one night. I was sitting on my veranda looking at the stars, and I've been working with Indigenous archaeology for all those years. And I thought, there's space junk up there. And does it have heritage value? Can I do an archaeology of it? So it kind of united that early interest in astronomy back with my archaeological interest. And
so you've combined your love of archaeology with outer space.
Yeah.
Talk about out of this world.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a pun I had to use. But that is amazing, isn't it, that we are so quickly finding ourselves in a situation where archaeology can apply to outer space.
I mean, people think archaeology is about old stuff.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Really what it's about is how we interact with the material world, how our environment and the objects that we use every day shape our behaviour, and how we create and shape those as well. So I suppose it's all very cyborgish, it's very hybrid, it's very interactive. And from my perspective, I think space has been important for a long time. Like, we're living in a world where we're connecting into satellites every day, you know, without even thinking about it. And we're heading off in new directions now. We're heading in directions where commercial operations and private corporations are playing a much bigger role.
Let's just concentrate on the satellites, for example, because that's going to be, I think we're going to get the big tick for that. We are going to be launching satellites that are built here in South Australia. How many are up there at the moment?
Of everybody's or of ours?
Everybody's.
I think there's about something like 4,000 satellites that are operational.
Wow. And how many are non-operational anymore?
A huge, much bigger number than that.
Yeah.
There's satellites that don't work, and then there's fragments of satellites, the stuff there's been an explosion with leftover fuel or a battery. It breaks into pieces. They collide with other things. They break into other pieces. And this is the thing that people are a bit worried about, that will get
so
to
there'll
a
be
point of no return.
hundreds of thousands of pieces of what we call space junk floating around up there.
Millions. From
Millions.
that little tiny, almost molecule-sized, right up to the huge, big ones, thousands and thousands of kilograms, large, heavy.
So how do you study that?
It's a good question, because people think of archaeology as excavating. As
going and looking at something and uncovering
and
it.
not only can I not dig up there, I can't actually go there either. But all of these bits of stuff up there are tracked and monitored every day. So there are huge databases run by NASA and European Space Agency and Roscosmos in Russia. So I access that data, and what I try to do with it, sometimes I look at individual satellites, at their particular histories and what that means. Sometimes I look at it from what's the relationship, what kind of landscape is this we've got up there now? What does this make space into? There's a common perception that space is a vacuum, it's empty. And so we put this stuff up so we could just take it out and space will go back to what it was before. Well, that's not what's going to happen. We've got a new thing now. We need to understand how all our stuff interacts with what's a very dynamic and complex environment.
Because once we put something up there, we can't really bring it back if it's in orbit and out of control.
We can't at the moment. There's a certain altitude above Earth where the atmosphere pulls things back in. Not quickly enough, but it does. And at the moment, we don't have the technology to actively remove something that's a hazard. Lots of people are working on it, but look, I don't know, we might be 10 years from having something that might work at a concept experimental phase even. So it's a bit of an interesting problem.
We need a garbage spaceship.
We do, we don't. We need a big vacuum up there.
Yeah.
You know, one of those leaf blowers on a Sunday morning.
Or a leaf sucker.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But Alice has this, in her presentation, she's got this amazing image of an image of the Earth, but then there's this cloud that surrounds Earth that is essentially pollution that you would find in the ocean or, you know, alongside the river, but actually it surrounds our entire planet, but up in space.
If you've got a question or you want to make a comment, give us a call, 8223 0000. Alice, if we don't get on top of this, if this just keeps on going, the trend of the space junk, what's going to happen?
Well, there's a theory called, it's called the Kessler syndrome, and it's that at a certain point, the number of collisions between bits of junk and the number of fragments that are created from those which keep colliding will set up a self-sustaining reaction, and there'll be nothing we can do at that point. We'll keep getting more and more bits, and each bit is a collision hazard in its own right. So what people fear
Okay, so the more collisions, sorry to interrupt, the more collisions we get, the more fragments we have, because more things will break up.
Exactly. So the kind of worst case scenario is that we won't be able to leave the Earth because, like, already this is something I find fascinating about space. Space insurance is a huge industry, so everything that gets sent into space has to be insured against collision that causes it to stop functioning. So we might get to the point where nothing can go up there without being damaged in some way.
Is that right? So it's so cluttered we couldn't find a clear path?
Or I guess that's visually, when you see pictures of this, it does look like everything's really close. It's not really close, but when you're moving through it, you have the more stuff there is, the more likely you are to have a collision. So visually it's
so either you crash into something or it crashes into you.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Which will have an impact on space tourism. At some point in the future.
We're going to talk about space tourism after a quick break. Fascinating subject, this. We're talking to Amanda Duthie, who is the lady in charge of Hybrid World Adelaide, which is a great event, kicks off this Friday. We've also got Dr. Space Junk with us, Alice
like
Gorman.
that, don't you?
I do like that title. I want to see your credit, not your credit card, but your business card during the break. We're back after this. 12 minutes away from 2 o'clock. We're having a very, very interesting discussion about a very big event that kicks off here in Adelaide at the Convention Centre on Friday evening. It's called Hybrid World Adelaide, and it's basically the coming together of the future, but it's happening right here, right now in Adelaide. And it's also leads into a conference that kicks off on Monday, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that at the moment. But we have with us at the moment Amanda Duthie, who is running the Hybrid World Adelaide and also just happens to be in charge of the Film Commission. Person of many talents. We've also got Adelaide or Flinders University Professor Alice Gorman, who's also commonly known as Dr. Space Junk. There you go, I said it again. And we've been talking about outer space, and Alice, is outer space tourism a reality? Is it going to really happen, or is it just pie in the sky stuff?
Oh, it really sounds like a science fiction scenario,
It does, doesn't it? Well, you know, when we were kids, we would all be flying to work in spaceships, weren't we? That still hasn't happened.
And we still don't have jetpacks either.
No, we don't have jetpacks either, no.
Not yet, the Jetsons.
But a couple
Hang
of
on,
years
but we
ago...
could do this. Remember that? Lost in space.
But people do have friendly robots now.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the same attitude as that robot, but we just haven't landed on another planet.
No, not yet. But it is a reality, is it? It's not just cloud in the sky
Already you can take a suborbital flight, which will give you, 30 seconds of experiencing zero-G. And, like Richard Branson and Musk and Bezos and all that crowd, like they're planning on this being a market. So a recent estimate of cost, the first space tourists who went on to the Russian Mir space station and the International Space Station cost millions of dollars. And they had to train as astronauts, like they did all of the training. But space tourists of the future won't have to do that training. Like, if you're at death's door, maybe it's not going to be the best idea ever. But according to Professor Walter Peters, who comes out to Adelaide for the International Space University every summer, he used to be an astronaut trainer, and he said that 86% of people are actually physically fit enough to go to space. So this is, if you're not doing that terrible rigorous training, if you just have to be well enough to go into orbit, 86% of people.
Because you assume you have to be Olympic standard fitness.
So I suppose what that means is 86% of people won't die the minute they get into orbit. And one of the recent cost estimates is, just for like a short flight up and coming back, is $200,000. Like, that's a lot of money, but it's not impossible.
Well, it's not millions, which we're used to hearing millions thrown around, aren't we? Yeah.
So it's not going to be. It's going to be quite a while before we've got a swishy space hotel where you can go and check in and have your little glass of champagne. Although I should say, champagne in space isn't yet possible, but we do have an Australian-developed space beer, especially for.
Of course we do.
Of course we do. So there's going to be.
Hang on, how come beer's possible, not champagne?
I can't remember the technical stuff, but it's something to do with the bubbles.
It is the bubbles, is it?
Smaller, aren't they?
So the beer is like a stout, so that means the bubbles taste more like you expect because of that kind of viscosity. Also, stout is very nutritious, as we all know. So it's a perfect space drink. But it's not going to be having. The kind of holiday experience you might have at a resort here. But for people who really want to feel what it's like, and as Amanda said, to have that view, you might not be actually all the time in orbit. You might just be close to orbit. But to have that view, I think that's something that a lot of people would really love.
Are you on the waiting list?
Look, I have ambivalent feelings about this because space makes people vomit a lot. And I don't know, I think that
I'm sure they give you a sick bag.
Well, they do that on planes. I don't think it makes us enjoy it. So I don't know, if somebody rocked up with a free ticket and said, "Are you up for it?" I would go. But I don't know. What about you?
I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would.
Amanda, be up there?
Whether I'd pass the physical or the medical, I don't know.
I think it would be fantastic, just to do the one orbit and come back. It would be, but I do worry about that motion sickness because it must be like 10 roller coasters rolled into one in terms of what it does to
I once did an experiment. I went to an amusement park where they had like a gravity rotor where they spin, and you, one of the worst experiences of my entire life. Like I couldn't move my head or eyes the slightest bit without feeling an incredible, I thought, okay, I'm not sure. And this is for actual astronaut training, this is what they do to them. And they make them like
they
solve
push them to the limit.
calculus equations while they're doing it. I just thought, I can't do it.
I've passed out in an aeroplane once.
Oh my
we were
gosh.
doing loop-the-loops. Yeah, the G-forces were just amazing. Yeah, so I don't know.
How did it feel when you came back?
Bizarre. Where am I? And then the adrenaline, is still pumping and so forth. And it's
oh my gosh,
pretty scary stuff.
It would be so exhilarating. And to wake up and look out the window and see the pale blue dot, but in much more detail, it would be incredible.
So, what do you think about the kids, or the younger generation? I shouldn't say kids. The younger generation who are taking part in Hybrid World Adelaide and so forth over the weekend. Does that make you excited?
Yeah, it does make me excited.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity for kids of all ages just to get exposed to some different ideas. And I think critically too, it's not just the ideas, it's how those ideas are put together.
It's the hands-on experience. It's not about other people talking about it. You can actually feel it and get a sense of it through.
And I think that's probably one of the big attractions of what you're holding over the weekend, particularly for mums and dads and grandmas and so forth, and aunties and uncles. We keep on hearing about all this. We very rarely see it in action. This is an opportunity for me to go and actually experience it. The fact that it is a reality. It's not just the textbook stuff.
That's right. You know, it's happening now. It's not really in the future. It's in existence in schools. Even to get a drone flying pilot licence means that you can work for a whole different range of jobs. Firefighters are using it a whole lot more. It's just much easier to use it in high-risk areas. I'm sure they sent drones down into the caves during the rescue period. It just means that that all of these skills are transferable in a whole range of industries. And I think that's where business and the startup community in South Australia is so excellent, because we're just ready to give everything a try at the frontier. And, South Australia has this incredible legacy of innovation and invention, and I think really Hybrid World has sort of come out of that legacy and that desire to keep exploring new ways of using technology and innovation. Yeah,
sounds really exciting. So it kicks off on Friday night at the Adelaide Convention Centre.
Yep, the public program runs from Friday to Sunday afternoon, and Monday and Tuesday next week is the conference. Tickets are still available.
So I can still go to the conference?
Absolutely.
That's not sold out yet?
Yep.
Okay.
Everything is available online, and you'll be able to hear more from Alice and all of these amazing people who are contributing to not just the space race, but what is our engagement with space on a broader level in terms of innovation technology, but also how are we going to manage it. But it also covers robotics and artificial intelligence and ag tech. That's pretty much everything that sort of impacts on our lives, from food and wine through to space tourism, Alan.
Now, if we do get the headquarters for the Australian space whatever, we're going to have our version of NASA, aren't we? Hopefully here in Adelaide.
It'll be very distinct.
Yes.
So it's going to be like NASA might have been if it didn't go down its particular path.
But I've got a dilemma for us to solve.
What's that, Alan?
What are we going to call it? We can't call it ASA.
No.
And we can't call it us either.
No, we can't call it. I didn't want to say that. You've said that. We can't, can we? We've got to come up with
I can tell you they've got a holding name, which is Australian Space Agency, but this is the subject of big deliberation at the moment, because we've kind of got to get that name right, don't
ASA
we?
or ASA. Yeah, we need to come up with another one. Okay, there's another challenge for everyone.
Excellent. We'll workshop
what do we
that.
call it? Thanks very much for coming in. Website to get all the details of...
hybridworldadelaide.org.
Hybrid World Adelaide, all one word.
Yep.
.org. Go on there, and I tell you what, that's the place to be this weekend, with the kids or without the kids even. Leave them at home and go along and have a bit of an explore in your own right. That way you won't feel embarrassed with the
Come
kids
and
saying,
play Space Invaders on the river.
Yeah, Space Invaders on the big water wall on the river. Yeah. Can't wait to see that. Thanks very much. Good to see you, and we'll see you on the weekend.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, stay with us.